We begin today in middle of the Mishnah on Daf Mem Vav Amud Aleph, the second line, where it says Haya Echad Mehem. So this Mishnah here is talking about shutfim, partners that have a neder not to have a no from one another. So the Mishnah brought a machlokes between the Tanna Kamma and Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, whether they're allowed to enter into the joint property that they own. Tanna Kamma says that they're not going to be allowed to enter. And the reason is because when you're entering, you're really using your partner's rights to be able to enter there. And you're not allowed to have enough from the rights that he gives you to enter. Right? And then I explained yesterday that Ran says that the basis of this is the idea of ein breira. We can't say that when you enter, you're now clarifying that now you are the full owner, and when your friend is going to enter, your partner is going to enter, now he's the full owner. No, it doesn't work that way. When you enter, so there's a joint ownership over here, and you're using his rights to be able to enter. So he's a neder, you can't enter. Elazar ben Yaakov says that no, when I enter, I'm going into my property. When you enter, you're going into your property, and that's the idea of a shutfis. The idea of a shutfis is that now it's going to be clarified that when we bought this together, the time that I enter is fully mine, the time when you enter is fully yours. Okay, then the Mishnah said, however, both the Tanna Kamma and Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov agree that as far as putting different items into this chotzer, putting a oven there, chickens there, that's something that is not part of the shutfis. If one shutf decides and tells them, take your items out of here, he could. That's not part of the shutfis, is that they can pass through, they can walk through. This is like a courtyard in front of the house, they can walk through. But to put their items there, then that's something that if you made a neder, everybody will agree that in this joint chutzner you will not be able to put your items there. The Mishnah continues. Let's see inside. Holding where it says, Haya echad mehem. So till there the Mishnah was talking about when there's a neder that they both are not having enough from each other. Haya echad mehem mudrana mechaveiroi. If the case of here is that only one of them has a neder that he will not have enough from his friend, from his partner, but the other one may have enough from him. So over here, the Mishnah first brings basically the same machlokes again between the Tanna Kamma and Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Says the Mishnah, so lo yikanes l'chatzer. So that one that may not have anah from his partner, so he can't enter into this chatzer. You're using the rights of your partner to be able to enter. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, as we said before, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, Yachol hu loy malay. He could say to his partner, L'toich shali ani nichnas. When I enter into this chatzer, now I am the owner. So I'm entering into my chatzer. I'm not entering into your chatzer. Ve'eni nichnas l'toich shalcha. I'm not entering into yours. So as the Ran says over here, really, this part of the Mishnah is a repetition from what we had before, and there's really no chiddush over here. The main chiddush that the Mishnah is saying is the next case, the next halacha that it says right here. In such a case, when partners are on this property, and one partner made a neder that I will not have anah from you, and now he may not enter into this place, and his partner could enter, we're going to force this person that made this neder not to enter to sell his portion in the partnership. What's the reason for this? Because if he's going to stay in this partnership, we're afraid that he's going to eventually walk into the chutzner as well. Because he's in a partnership and he sees that his partner is walking in and out all the time because his partner didn't make any neder and he's able to enter freely. And you, Nebuch, made a neder and you can't come in. So because of this, you're gonna be jealous of your partner's usage of this joint ownership that you have here, and you may come to enter as well. So therefore Chazal were geyser and said that you're going to have to sell your partnership over here. So you shouldn't come to be over. There's a big chashash, there's a big concern that you might come to be over on your neder. That's the question, huh?
No, so in other words, he made a neder not to go into that. Because he made that neder, he has to sell it.
Correct. Yeah, because he made this kind of a neder. He put himself in a position where it's a big...
There's no neder anymore.
No. Of course there is. If he sells, if he sells it, so then there is a neder. If he sells it, there's still a neder. He's not allowed to go into his. He made a neder not to have a neder from his friend. There's for sure there's still a neder. But then he's not going to be jealous anymore. He sold off his rights, and that's it. He's gone. He doesn't have. But over here, if he's still a partner and his friend is walking in and he's not, so then he's going to be jealous of this.
No,
yeah.
He may not have any enough of him.
Yeah, correct.
This particular thing.
Correct.
So it is possible that he might want to, when they push him like this to sell, he
Mm-hmm.
might want to mevatel the neder, right?
Well, we're not talking about being mevatel the neder. We're talking about him selling. Maybe. That's also a possibility.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, the Ram points out that this halacha here is true even according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says even when they made a neder from each other, he's still allowed to walk in because he'd say, "I'm going into my chelek." So when it says over here "kaifin es hanoider," seemingly according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, there's no reason to force him to sell because he's actually allowed to walk in. But as we learned before, even Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov agrees that his partner that did not make a neder will be able to put his items there. You can't stop him from doing that, but you are not going to be allowed to put any of your items there. You actually could stop your friend. You actually could stop your partner of putting your items there. Like I mentioned in the beginning, you're not. That's not part of the partnership. But mitzad a neder, your partner did not make a neder to not have a nor from you. So if he goes ahead and puts his items there, he's not being over on the neder. You, if you want to put down your bike there, you want to put down any item over there, you're not allowed. That I know even Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov agrees you're not allowed. So therefore, this idea that he's going to be jealous of your friend, that he's using the partnership much more than you are, still applies. And therefore, even according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, you're going to have to sell your portion, so you shouldn't come to be over on your neder.
I was going to say, I'm putting in my place.
No, but according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the svara that you say that I'm putting it in my place doesn't apply b'negei to putting down items. That only applies b'negei to walking through. Regarding putting down things, that's something that if one partner tells the other, take it away from here, you're allowed. So that's not part of the partnership. Haya echad min hashuk. Similar, again, we see here the machlokes between the Tanna Kama and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov in another case. If there's a third person, a person from the street, muder be'echad mehem mano, he made a neder not to have enough from one of these partners. So says the Tanna Kama, lo yikanes l'chatzer. So he can't enter into this property. Again, the point is because this property is owned by both of them together. So if you made a neder not to have enough from one of the partners, so you can't walk in. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, however, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Yachal loy maloi, this person, this third person from the street can come and say, L'tech shechavercha ani nichnas. I'm not going into you. I made the neder not to have a no from you, but I'm not entering into your chotzer. It is a partnership here. So I'm again. I'm entering into your friend, into the partner's property. I'm not entering into your property. Same point like we said before, according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the partnership is that each one has full ownership in the time when he uses it. So when this person comes in, he's saying, I have nothing to do with you, I'm the guest of your partner. So I'm not having a no from you, I'm having a no from him. So the Ran actually brings over here, so that actually means that he's only allowed to walk in if he's walking in as a guest of the other person. If you're walking in for this partner as his guest and he invited you, so then you're walking in now in his time when he's the owner, so then you won't be allowed to walk in. Sagt Mishnah weiter, this is actually a halacha that is not about partners, but this is going back b'chlal to what we spoke about in the previous Pedic, when you have a person that is not allowed to have a no from his friend. So we discussed all kinds of halachas, what you still are allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do as far as having a no. So here's another halacha. Hamudar ano mechaveira. So you have a neder not to have a no from your friend. V'yesh loi merchatz u'beis habad. And this person, so he owns a bathhouse or an olive press. Muskarin be'ir, and it was rented out to somebody else in the city. So now the question is, are you allowed to go and use this? You're not allowed to have a no from this person and from any of his possessions, but this is a possession that he rented out to someone else. So the din is, im yeshle behen tfisas yad, if the owner that you may not have a no from him still has a tfisas yad, meaning his hand is still in it. He still has a certain rights to it. Gemara is going to explain what that means. So then also, you're still not going to be allowed to use it. But if he rented it out to someone else and he has no rights in it anymore, then mutter. So then, when you're using it, you're not having enough from this person because he rented it out to someone else and he has no rights in it anymore. Dr. Mishnah, another din, and we had this quoted before already. A person says to his friend, I make a neder not to enter into your home. So he uses specifically the term beischa, your home, or satcha shani lekeach, I will not enter into your field. Meis, so now this person passed away, or he sold it to someone else, mutter. So then it'll be allowed for you to enter because you specified very clearly that it's your home, your field that I'm not walking into. Keinem bei zeh shani nichnas, or the zu shani lekech. But if you say I make a neder of this house not to walk into, or of this field not to go into it, so then shani lekech, that I will not buy it. That is, yeah, thank you. Meis oishamachroi, if he died or he sold it to someone else, so still usher. It's going to be usher for you to enter into this house or to buy it, because you didn't say when it's yours. You said this house and this property without specifying yours. So therefore, it's always going to be usher on you. Yeah, similar concept. Yeah. Okay, so the Gemara begins here, going back to the first halacha of the Mishnah, where there was the machlokes regarding partners that made a neder not to have anah from each other, and now the question is, are they allowed to enter into this property or not? So there was the machlokes of the Tanna Kamma and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Says the Gemara, the question was asked about this. What exactly was the case when they were arguing? So before I read the Gemara inside, when you have two people that make a neder not to have anah from each other, it could actually be in two ways. Either each one made the neder on himself. Reuven made a neder, I will not have anah from Shimon, and Shimon makes a neder, I will not have anah of Reuven. Or it could be different. They each one asked the other. Reuven did not answer himself. Reuven said, I don't allow Shimon to have any anah from me. And Shimon asked Reuven. Shimon says, Reuven may not have anah from me. Right? Again, are they answering themselves, or is each one answering each other? So, yes, of course. I can ask someone else to have anah from my possessions, from my properties. Or I could ask myself of having anah from you. I place a neder on myself that this item that belongs to you, I will not have anah from it. Right? So these are the two different...
put this on somebody else.
Of course, we're learning over here in the entire Masechta.
I know.
You can ask someone else of having anah of your possessions. So the question over here is, what's the case of our Mishnah? When it says over here that these shutfin made the neder not to have anah from each other, what are we talking about? The question is, benadru pligi? Is the case over here in the Mishnah that nadru, meaning that each one made a neder on himself, I will not have anah from you? And that's when there's the argument between the Tanna Kamma and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, whether now they are allowed to enter into this property that they own, the shutfis. Hasanat, the Gemara expels that and explains what the question over here is. But the question will still stay if it's a case that they made a neder from each other. In other words, Reuven said, Shimon should not have anah from me, and Shimon said, Reuven should not have anah from me. So what's going to be the halacha in that case? Mi amrina, and do I say as follows? Benadru hu de pligi. The whole argument over here is when each one took this neder upon himself. But if it would be a case that each one made the neder on the other, I never made the neder myself. My partner got angry at me, and he made the neder on me, and so I made a neder back on him. But each one made the neder on the other. So then, maybe in such a case, Rabbanan would agree to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov that you still are allowed to walk into the property. Why? Because then it's something which is an einus, it's something which is out of my control. I own this property, there's a shutfis here, and my friend goes and makes a neder to stop me from walking in. So in such a case, they will agree to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov that he is allowed to walk in. Or perhaps pligi rabbanon, or even in a case when they did make a neder one on another. So even though it's something that my other friend is doing against me, and it's out of, I have nothing, really nothing I can do about this, but nevertheless it doesn't matter. The neder takes effect, and you will lose your ability to use your chatzit, even though you're a partner here. But too bad, you're not going to be able to use this place. So that's the shaila over here. So the way that Ran explains this is that when we learned the Mishnah, so the explanation was that this machlokes between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov really depends on the nature of the partnership. If the nature of the partnership is that I say yesh bereida, that when each one enters, he's entering into his property, so then you're allowed to enter, even after you made a neder. If the nature of the partnership is that no, I don't have full ownership when I walk in, we're using each other's rights, so then you will not be able to enter during the time you make a neder. If that's the explanation of the machlokes, so then the second way the Gemara says over here is going to be true. It makes no difference who made the neder. You made the neder, he made the neder. What difference does it make? If I say yesh bereida, so then you're walking into your property when you go in. If you say ein bereida, so then that means that you're using the other person's rights in order to be able to enter. When the Gemara over here says that there's a distinction between who made the neder, if you made the neder, or he made the neder, what the Gemara is really saying is that really everybody agrees that yesh breira, that when I'm walking in, I'm really walking into my property. That's so there's no really, in a case where each one is trying to answer the other one of enter, it doesn't work. I'm entering into my property, so there's no problem. Elamai, if you made a neder on yourself, you did this to yourself. In such a case, so there's a knas. Because you come and you're creating this isser upon yourself not to enter, so over here Chachamim said that you should not be able to enter. Even though me'ikra din you should be able to, because when I enter, I'm walking to my property. But maybe it's just a knas, because you did this kind of a neder to ask yourself. So Chachamim said, okay, so you're not allowed to enter. That the neder takes effect. That's the pshat over here in this, according to the Ran. Some Rishonim disagree, but this is the Ran's explanation for this ibay of the Gemara. So Gemara says, let's take a look into the language of the Mishnah itself. Tashema, what does the Mishnah say? Not in the first case, but one of the later cases in the Mishnah, it says, Haya echad mehem muder hana mechaverei. If in the case where the Mishnah says, when one was asa from his friend, they weren't asa from each other, but one was asa from his friend, what's the language the Mishnah uses? Mudar. What does the word mudar mean? Mudar ana does not mean that you made the neder upon yourself. Mudar ana mechavera means that your friend made the neder on you, which means it's something that's not your fault at all. It's an einus. O pligi rabbanan. And the Mishnah over there brings that even in this case there's a machlokes between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. So I clearly see over here in the lashon of the Mishnah that the machlokes is in both cases. The machlokes is in the case when you made the neder yourself. The machlokes is also when your friend made the neder on you. That makes no difference. So the Gemara says, but no, tani, you have to change the word in the Mishnah. Learn in the Mishnah, nadur mechaveri anar, that you yourself were asa, you asad on yourself, you made a neder upon yourself not to have anar from your friend. That's when there's the machlokes here between the Tanakama and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, whether I say because you took this upon yourself, Chachamim come and say that this is a knas, that the neder takes effect and you will not be able to walk in. Why is the Gemara switching the word of the Mishnah? So the Gemara says, it's logical to say that what our Mishnah is speaking about is that a person took this neder upon himself because the Tani Seifa, because in the Seifa of the Mishnah it says that what happens in this case when one partner made a neder not to enter and the other one did not. So the Mishnah says, we force the one that has the neder that he may not enter. So now we're concerned that he may come to be over this neder when he sees his friend is walking in freely. So we force him to sell his portion. Says the Gemara, if it says over here, the case over here is that he's the one that took this neder upon himself. So so therefore, because you're the one that did this to yourself, you put yourself into a position that there's a neder, and now you may come to be over isser, so we're going to force you to sell, to not to come to be over on this neder you made. But if you're going to say the case over here is, you never took this upon yourself. Your partner got angry at you, and he made a neder to stop you from entering. So now we're gonna make it even worse for him. The partner went and tried to lock you out from the chutzner. So now we're gonna force you not to sell. Hamein is honest. The other person is the one that made the neder that you may not have a no. Why? It makes no sense that we should force you to sell. So from this we see that the Mishnah, the lashon of the Mishnah, is talking about neder that you made the neder upon yourself. Okay, so we can't prove anything from the Mishnah. So this iboy over here remains unresolved. So the Gemara, Omar Rabbe, Omar Zeiri. Rabbe said in the name of Zeiri regarding this Mishnah about this property, this chotzer, that there's an argument whether when there's a neder that they may not have a nor from each other. The machlokes is here whether they're allowed to enter or not. What kind of a property are we talking about? So before I read the Gemara inside, there's two kinds of properties. There's a property that's large enough that the partners could split. If they choose at any time, they buy this together, but at any time they can choose to split. It has to be at least enough space that there should be 4 amas for one and 4 amas for the other. That's what's called yesh bei kedei chalukah. It's large enough to split. And then there's a property that's small. Like, for example, you have this little courtyard that's right in front of a house that people just have to be able to walk through from the street into this little courtyard and enter into the house. And there's less than 4 amas for one and 4 amas for the other. And then it's not even big enough to split. So when they buy this in a house, and then they have also a joint ownership in this chutz in front of the house, this is something that they can't split ever. It's a partnership that's there to stay. That's the two types of partnerships here. So now the Gemara says that Rabbi said, Machloikis, the argument between the Tanakama and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is Keshiyeshba Kedei Chaluka. We're talking about a kind of a property that could be split. Aval ein ba kedei chaluka, but if this is a kind of property that cannot be split, then divrei hakel mutar. Everybody will agree that you're allowed to enter into the property even after you made a neder. What's the reason for this? So the Ran explains. Let's start first with the case of. True. One second. We're not selling anything, but the explanation that Ran explains, when it's a small property and they can't divide this, ein ba kedei chaluka. So when they bought it together, they bought it with the intention to use together. They're never going to be selling this. They bought it for that purpose. So therefore it's very logical to say the idea of yesh breira, which means that we bought it lechatchila with the intention that sometimes I'm going to walk through here and sometimes you're going to walk through here. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov's opinion that says that when each one walks in, he's walking in fully into his property makes a lot of sense, because there is no option to sell. There is no option that we bought it in the beginning together, but really maybe you could say they bought it together in the beginning because they couldn't afford to buy it separately, and then eventually they're going to split. In a case of a property where yesh ba kedei chaluka, where you could split, so now it's not so pashut to say that each one is entering fully into his property when he enters. Why? Because when they bought it in the beginning, could be they bought it all for the purpose of what? That they're going to split, and part is going to be mine and part is going to be yours. So when each one is entering into the property, it's not so mistaver to say that each one is entering fully into his property. Yesh ba kedei chaluka. It's large enough to actually split. So therefore the point that the Gemara is saying is that the whole machlokes over here between the Tanakam and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, whether you could say that each one is entering fully into his property, is if it's a small place and each one has to use it together with the other. So then I understand that I say that the whole point of the way they bought it was that each one will use it fully when he enters and it'll be fully his. But if it's yesh ba kedei chaluka, so then part is mine and part is yours. It's bought in such a way that it could be split. So therefore when each one enters, so over here is where the machlokes is am I entering fully into my property or no? Do we say that we both own this together and we're sort of giving rights to each other to use it until we'll sell, until we'll split? That's the pshat over here in this Gemara, according to the Ran. Okay, on this, Amalei Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef asks Rabba on this pshat, but how could he say this? Harei Beis HaKnesses. A shul in the city of these partners that made a neder not to have enough from each other. And there's a shul in the city. The Kemi She'en Ba Kedei Chaluka Dami. A shul is a place where everybody walks in to daven there, to learn there. This is a place where it's Ein Ba Kedei Chaluka. You can't split the shul and say that this is mine and this is yours. And nevertheless, what does it say? This is later here in this Perek. Tanan, the Mishnah says, Shneim Asurim B'Dava Shel Oisa Ha'ir. When you have these two people that have a neder not to have enough from each other, they're both going to be usher to use things that are in the city that people use together. So, and the same thing also regarding the shul. They can't go walk into the shul and use the shul that's used jointly by all the people of the city. So what do you see over here? That even though this is something which is Ein Ba Kedei Chaluka, but nevertheless, I say that they can't walk into the shul together. So how could you say that in a case of Ein Ba Kedei Chaluka, everybody agrees that when I walk in, this is my full place now, and when you walk in, this is your full place now? How could you say that? So Elam Rav Yosef Amaziri. So therefore Rav Yosef said that really Ziri said the exact opposite. Machlokes, when's the argument between the Tanakama and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov? She'en ba kedei chaluka. If it's a property that's small and it cannot be divided. Over here, because there's more of a svara to say that when each one walks in, he's walking in fully into his property, because that's the whole deal in the first place. It could never be divided. So therefore, what the whole intention over here is that I'm walking in fully into mine. Over here is where Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says that you can walk in, it's fully yours. But if it's a property that is large enough to split, here even Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is going to agree that it's going to be usher for you to walk in, because you can't say I'm walking fully into my property. We bought it lechatchila in such a ofen that it could be split. Until we split it, I have rights to use it together with you. But when I'm using it from the other person. So if they can't have enough from each other, they can't walk in. So the Gemara concludes now regarding this machlokes. Amar Avuna, Aloch Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov. We paskin over here like Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov. V'chein Amar Reb Elazar, Aloch Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov. We paskin like Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov. I mentioned already. The Gemara says in a few places we always paskin like Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov because Mishnah's Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov is kav and noki.
It's only in the Chalukah.
Well, yeah, that's Rav Yosef. Yeah, l'chayre, regarding the case of Ein Bakadei Chalukah. That was the case of Eliezer ben Yaakov. Yeah. Okay, the next thing it said in the Mishnah was Hamudar Anah Mechaveira. So the next case in the Mishnah is not talking about partners. Person that made a neder not to have anah from his friend. V'yesh leisham merchatz v'cholu. And so what happens when there's a bathhouse or something else that this person owns and he rented it out? So the Mishnah said it depends if the owner still has rights in it, tfisas yad, or not. So how do we define that the original owner still has rights in it? Kama tfisas yad. What's considered to be that he still has a hand, he still has rights in this? Rav Nachman says, Rav Nachman, lemechza, l'shlish, u'l'reviyah. If he rented it out to someone else, but the deal was that whatever income this person, this renter gets in this bathhouse, whether half of the income, a third of the income, or at least a quarter of the income goes to the original owner. So that means you still have a hand in this. So the person that made a net and not have a nar from you can't use it. But if you do not have at least a quarter of this income that comes to you, if the deal was that you'll get less than a quarter, then loy. That's not considered to be that the owner still has a hand in it, and therefore the person that made a neder will be allowed to use it. Abaye says, even if the original owner still has some kind of income that he gets, even if it's less than a quarter, still it will be asr for the person that made the neder to have enough from this, because this person that's still called a tfisas yad. He still has some rights in it, still has some income of it. So according to Abaye, what is the case that it will be allowed? So he says the mekabel betaske. That's only in such a case where the original owner that rented this out, see, he's like collecting a tax. What that means is he's just collecting a set price for the rental, whether an annual price or a monthly price, whatever it is. But he's not actually getting a percent of the actual income that's coming from this bathhouse, from the people that are using it. So if it's a set price, so then that's not called that he has a tfisas yad in the actual usage and income of this bathhouse, and therefore he'll be allowed to use it. This is one girsa in the Gemara. So, but there is another girsa in the Gemara, a very interesting girsa, which the Ran and many Rishonim are guidis. When it says there in the Gemara avol bebotzer, it's not read avol bebotzer, but it's actually read avol bebeitzim, but eggs. How does eggs fall into this Gemara? So the Ran explains, there's a few different explanations for this. The Ran explains what this means is that if the owner rented it out to someone else, but the owner still wants to have some kind of an income here, so what does he do? He sets up a table outside of the bathhouse and he's selling eggs. So like this, the people, he has the rights to set up his table there and to sell eggs for the people. So what Rav Nachman was saying is, if you gave up all the rights, you rented it out and all the income goes to the renter, but you just left for yourself the right to be able to put a table and sell eggs. So that's not called that you have a hand, that you still have some rights over here in this bathhouse. That's an external thing. You're just selling eggs to the people that are coming here. But Abaye said that even if you're just keeping the rights for yourself to be able to sell eggs, it's still going to be aser. And it's only if mekabel betaska, only if you relinquish all your rights and you just took a set amount of a pay for this bathhouse, then it will be mutter for this person to go ahead and use it. There's another point that the Ran speaks about over here by Arichis regarding this case, that l'cha'ere, he says, you see from the Gemara later that even when you rent out something, but if the actual what happens when you rent something out? The actual bathhouse still belongs to the original owner. It's just a rental. The usage of it belongs to the renter to be able to use it for himself or to other people to use it to make an income of this. But the actual bathhouse still belongs to you. So the Ran says, if this person may not have a nah from him and not from any of the possessions that he owns, if the actual bathhouse still belongs to the original owner, how could you have a nah? How does the fact that you rented it out in such a way that you relinquished all income help? It's a big discussion over here in the Ran, and he brings many different answers to it. But the Ran himself comes to the conclusion, and he says that you see from this Gemara that even if you own the actual bathhouse itself, but you rented out the usage, the person that may not have a nar from you, as long as he's having enough from the usage of it, it'll be allowed. True, the actual bathhouse belongs to you, but what is he having enough from? He's only having enough from the usage of it, and therefore you see from here from our Gemara that it will be allowed. Now, other Rishonim that disagree, other Rishonim have other pshatim in this Gemara, but that's the conclusion of the Ran's pshat in this Gemara.
Makes sense.